How are we doing, Fran? Hope you are well. Let's get into this week. Hopefully this shoulder, elbow is feeling a little bit better. Oh. Oh. Nicely done. Good. Those elbows are flaring back a little bit, tipping the centre of balance off ever so slightly. So we'd want those just cranked under the bar just ever so slightly more, Fran. But the actual the descent of the squat and where you're pulling the trigger to stand up out of, much better. Beautifully done. Nicely judged. Yeah, very nicely judged. I think that's a little over what was predicted as well. I just noticed before you descend, that little raise up onto the tiptoes. I like that you're trying to get the deep breath in. Okay, the whole going underwater thing, I think is you're doing it right. Deep breath in and squeeze the shoulders down. Again, I would just want the elbows screwed under just that little bit more. And I want to see the feet planted. Okay, that little raise up onto the tiptoes. It's something that's isn't anything to do with the squat itself at all. But one, it takes a lot of energy to raise up onto your tiptoes with that much, and two, it might just upset. It might just upset your balance a little bit. Nice. Let's have a look at that again. Nice. Yeah, I mean, your heel being like up like that, no big deal. Something this is why I generally would recommend people squat in lifters. Again, it's one of those where it's nothing major. Your heels, for example, the biggest benches of all time have all been set with people's heels off the ground. In federations that allow it. It's just like an arbitrary standard that powerlifting's kind of plugged into the bench press itself. But what that is indicative of is you would want the feet ever so slightly further forward just in general. You would want a little bit more of it, getting closer to that 90 degrees here at the knee, rather than being quite so far tucked back, because you've got the lower back sorted now. Okay, you're keeping your glutes squeezed, which is stopping the hips rising up. So don't overthink it. Not the end of the world. Okay, right. That was a little uglier than I've seen before. So remember that cue I gave you last week, okay, about thinking about your tug of war? Okay, if we're in a tug of war and you're in this position, if you were stood upright with shoulders forward like that, head up, okay, you'd be pulled right over. There's a lot going on here at the spine. Okay, so that you've got hip flexion under here, you've got extension through the top. There's a lot going on. The head can start to rise and tip back once the bar's over the knees. Because at that point, using your head as like a counterbalance is a good tactic to have, but not up off the floor. Because all those muscles, throughout the traps, rear delts, rhomboids, lats, even, that are responsible for pulling the shoulders back down and pulling the shoulder blades back, are being used to raise your heavy head up. Okay, so it is one of those where those muscles when they should be depressing the shoulders and keeping the spine neutral, are actually being used now to pull and raise the head up. Let's have a look at how the others look, if you've got any more in during the week. Again, those elbows have fired back a little bit recently. We'd want those tucked under a little more. Good fight. Good fight. Not far off your normal RP8 single. Very well done. That's the only thing I can really pick out with that one, Frann, is again these elbows have started to creep back to where they were. Now, if that's more comfortable based on how the shoulder and elbows feeling, then that's fine. We'll kind of ride that wave for now, but that is something for you to be aware of. As soon as you've got hold of the bar, okay, corkscrew your elbow. They haven't got to be right out in front. They've just got to be a bit more in line with the body, because it's too heavy bits of body out behind you, and we want everything as neutral going through that line of power as possible. Much better. Keeping that bar close. It's hard to tell, but it looks a little far away from you at the moment, even when you dip. So on that one, you can see the bars still kind of being pulled and rolling almost back in towards you as you're about to pull it up. That one was a bit more stable. Head's in a better position on this one. He says, apart from that last one where the head's up. Okay, need that head a little bit more neutral. Okay, so where you are in the uni gym, okay, just think about where the bar holders are at the back of the rack, and kind of think towards the end of the platform. Just try and stay fixed on that until the bar's at your knees. Then, like I said, once the bar's at your knees, I don't mind people using that to lift their head up as a counterbalance, because by that point the upper back's done what it needs to. It's done its bit. Generally, yeah, pretty damn happy with how these numbers are going. The numbers are a little undershot at the moment, so I will pause this for a second and I'll show you what I had planned for your next week. Okay, Frann, so we're back. So we've got a little bit of a deload week coming up now. Just to bring the volume down a little bit, just give you a chance, your body a bit of a chance to sort of get its bearings. I have also bumped up the calculators for a couple of your lifts, just with the amount of yellow squares we've got going on, which is good. I think you've been pretty realistic with the RPEs that you've been asked to hit. I think it's good that you haven't just, what some people do is they just like vehemently just stick to the numbers on there, even if they feel like there's more in the tank and they feel like they could go on with it. And again, the thing is, you've earned the right to have those numbers increased. And we're not too far away from testing. We're a couple of weeks away from testing some top end kind of singles, and we'll kind of see sort of like how the rep work translates into the top end. But overall, pretty solid. I want that, like, again, I would want to see those elbows tucked in closer to the body a little more. You don't have to force them forward, okay? Particularly with a bad shoulder and elbow, it's not going to do you any favors. The decrease in volume this week should be okay for, again, to help with the elbow and shoulder a little bit. But let me know if you could give me a voice update like you did the other day in regards to how things are feeling with that, and I can make some alterations to the amount of pressing. There's quite a bit of pressing in there this week. Alterations that might be a little bit more comfortable on the elbow and shoulder. So things like you've got neutral incline press there as an option. So that wouldn't be sticking to these numbers. That would be with dumbbells tucked in neutral and tuck them much closer to the body. Stops that external rotation of the adduction of the shoulder, and will take the strain off the elbows a little bit. So these ones are optional. The touch and go bench, you're spending less time with the actual bar in motion, so shouldn't be too bad. But just as always, keep me up to date with that. I would rather you undercook it and get through the deload. It's exactly what it is. It's a deload, rather than force matters, just for the hell of it. Overall, again, another good week. Squats looking much better. Just think about with that head position in the deadlift, think about shoulders back down, really force that chest up, squeeze an orange in your armpit and turn your knees out to the inside of your forearms when you're in that bottom position, and it is a push into the ground. Okay, don't pull the bar, push the platform down. Any issues, Fran, let me know. And again, if you could give me a quick voice note sort of update on where you're at, that would be awesome. Thank you.